In this installment, we're going to look at types of forces a little more closely. So what is a force? In general usage, force is strength or energy exerted or brought to bear, the cause of motion or change, active power. So there's a lot of, and the key in this is its general usage. It is colloquial. So almost everything about this definition is wrong from a physics perspective. The technical definition, which is the one that we should use, is it's any interaction, notice the use of this word interaction, that when unopposed changes the motion, and I put in here momentum, changes the momentum of the object. So forces bring about a change in momentum. And of course, we know the definition of force is the rate of change of momentum, delta P over delta T. So changing motion means changing velocity, and if we're changing velocity, that means we're changing momentum. So force is anything that brings about a change in momentum. So when it comes to thinking about forces, I mentioned this in the previous video, this idea of fundamental versus derived quantities. So fundamental things, it turns out in all the universe, there are only 7 things that we can measure: length, time, mass, number, temperature, electric current, and luminous intensity. In a mechanics course, we only measure those 3 things. And length is measured in meters and seconds and kilograms. And it turns out these 7 things taken together are what we call the SI quantities, the metric quantities, the System International quantities. So these are the fundamental quantities. Everything else is derived. For example, if we take the concept of momentum, which is P equals mv, well, momentum, P is kilogram meters per second. These are derived units, kilogram meters per second. The units of momentum are derived. Now, when it comes to force, we have force as mass times acceleration, and so force is kilogram meters per second squared, also derived, and we have agreed to rename kilogram meters per second squared as newtons. So fundamental versus derived quantities. And we can apply this concept to forces. We have our fundamental forces: gravity, electromagnetism, strong and weak force. Well, all the other things we call forces are derived from those fundamentals. So friction is really the result of gravity and electromagnetic interaction. Buoyancy, also gravity and the electromagnetic interaction. The normal force, electromagnetic, and tension, electromagnetic. So any other word or term that we have in front of forces really means it's combined of, it really means all adjectives in front of force, such as this, something force, are either the names for the fundamental interaction, gravity, electricity, magnetism, or it's names of the derived or fundamental force responsible for it. So normal, friction, drag, applied, restoring, etc. So normal force, friction force, drag force, applied force, restoring force, applied force, all derived from the 4 fundamentals. It may also be a component, and that component is what we mean when we have something that's at an angle and we can break it into its Cartesian components. So it could be that the fundamental force, it's a component of the fundamental force, so we could have gravity, and there could be a component of it that's perpendicular to or parallel to. The other adjective here can refer to the geometry of the force, such as perpendicular, parallel, but also normal or centripetal, describing the geometry. So there's a word in front of this force. No matter what it is, it's going to boil down to electrical or magnetic. Electrical or gravity, electromagnetic or gravity. But anything else that appears here is going to be caused by that, in that it's a derived force. It could be a particular geometric component, or it could describe the geometry of the force. In all cases, in AP Physics 1, and in most all cases in high school and college freshman courses, are combinations of gravity and the electromagnetic force. There are some exceptions, and that occurs in IB Physics, SL, and HL, and courses or units in modern physics that a student might encounter.